Have you ever looked at something, maybe a topic or a text, that just seems really dense, almost intimidating, but you decide to jump in anyway, and then, wow, these like unexpected insights just start popping out at you?
Absolutely. That's kind of the feeling we're tapping into today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're doing a deep dive into a story from, well, from the ancient world. It might seem very specific at first glance,
Right.
but it actually unpacks some really timeless ideas about searching for meaning, about how major spiritual movements get started.
We're zeroing in on the story around Sanjaya. He was a pretty well-known teacher back then. And the Buddha's very first followers. We're using the Sanjaya Vatthu text mainly.
Okay.
And our mission really is to get a feel for the context.
Mhm.
You know, how did these key figures in early Buddhism actually emerge? What were the dynamics like when people were searching for spiritual answers?
And right away, there's this puzzle that got me thinking. You have Sanjaya,
Mhm.
respected teacher, lots of followers, good reputation, but he apparently says no thanks to the teachings of the Buddha, who had just reached enlightenment. And what's even stranger, maybe, is he seems to reject the path his own two best students chose. So, okay, who are these two students, these figures who became so important later on?
Right, so these were Upatissa and Kolita. We know them better by their later names, Sariputta and Moggallana.
Ah, okay, the chief disciples.
Exactly. And the texts say they were super close friends, like from birth. Grew up in neighboring Brahmin villages near a major city called Rajaka.
And they weren't exactly poor, were they? I remember reading something about palanquins.
That's right. The text makes a point of their comfortable lives. It mentions Upatissa having access to 500 gold palanquins and Kolita 500 thoroughbred chariots. So, yes, definitely well off. And smart, too. Exceptional intellects.
So privileged lives, sharp minds.
Yeah.
What pushes them to look for something more? It's that feeling, isn't it? When the things that used to satisfy you just don't anymore.
Precisely. The story pinpoints this moment during a big festival, the Jaraga Samaja in Rajaga. Huge event, lots of entertainment.
Okay.
And right there, amidst all the fun, they both just felt disillusioned, like completely. The shows, the spectacles, they suddenly seemed hollow, meaningless.
Wow.
And that sparked this deep need to find a path to liberation, something real, something beyond just fleeting pleasures.
A real turning point then. And their first move was to become students of Sanya.
Yes, exactly. Sanjaya Parvabragaka, he was a big name in Rajaga, had a large group following him. So Upatissa and Kolita, along with about 500 of their own friends and followers, they joined Sanyaya's group.
500 followers of their own, even before joining Sanya.
Yeah, it suggests they were already influential young men. And interestingly, the text notes Sanyaya's own reputation actually got a boost when these two joined.
Which says a lot about them, right? They must have been impressive, quick learners, I imagine.
Incredibly quick. They mastered Sanjaya's teachings very fast, but because they were so sharp, they also started to see the limits.
Oh.
They felt his answers, especially to their deepest questions about liberation, didn't quite go far enough, weren't sufficient ultimately.
That's a big realization, to figure out that even this respected teacher maybe didn't have the final answer. What did they do then?
Well, they made a pact. Since they were both on the same quest, they promised each other. Whoever finds the true path to liberation first tells the other immediately. No delay.
Nice. A partnership in seeking.
Right. And then they set out, traveling all over Jambudvipa, that's basically the Indian subcontinent, looking for other wise ascetics, other teachers. But, well, they couldn't find anyone who could really answer those profound questions they had.
So they were actively searching, hitting the road,
Hmm.
not just sitting around hoping, which sets the scene for meeting Aishabid. Tell us about him.
Okay, so Assaji. He was one of the very first disciples to become an arahant fully enlightened through the Buddhist teaching. One of the first 61, the texts say. Wow, okay. And he was just coming back into Rajaga on his alms round when Upatissa saw him. And the text really emphasizes this. Upatissa immediately noticed Ajvajit's incredible serenity, his whole demeanor.
Like an aura.
Something like that. A powerful intuition kicked in. Upatissa just knew this monk was special, that he'd found what they were looking for.
You know that feeling of recognition sometimes? When you meet someone and sense a real depth there. So Upatissa approaches him.
Well, first he respectfully followed him while Ajvajit collected alms. Then, after Ajvajit finished his meal, Upatissa went up, offered his own sitting cloth, offered water. These gestures of respect, showing his sincerity.
Nice touches.
Then he asked, very politely, who is your teacher? What does he teach?
And Assaji was a bit hesitant at first, wasn't he? Being new to the monkhood.
Yes, that's right. He said something like, "Friend, I'm just newly ordained. I can't really explain the Dhamma, the teaching, in great detail yet."
But Upatissa wasn't deterred.
Not at all. He sensed something vital there, so he gently insisted, asking him to share just the essence, whatever he could.
And what happened next is, well, it's huge in Buddhist history.
Absolutely pivotal. Assaji then recited this very short verse. It summarizes the Buddha's core insight. Ye dharma, hetu papavapisas, hetu tatagato aha, desanyaka yoniroho evavairi mahasame.
Which means?
Roughly. Of things that arise from a cause, the Tathagata, the Buddha, has torn their cause and also their cessation. This is the teaching of the great ascetic.
Wow. So concise. Cause, effect, and the end of the cycle. And the impact on Upatissa. Instantaneous.
Pretty much. The text says upon hearing just the first two lines, Upatissa attained Sotapadhi, that stream entry, the first stage of enlightenment.
Just like that. From 2 lines.
He grasped the core principle immediately. Things arise because of causes, so if you stop the causes, you stop the result suffering. He understood he didn't need the whole lecture right then. His first question was, where is the teacher? Where can I find the Buddha?
Incredible. The power of getting to the absolute heart of the matter.
Yeah.
Okay, so Upatissa is now a stream enterer. He rushes off to find Kolita, right, to fulfill their pact.
Exactly. He finds Kolita, tells him what happened, and recites that same verse from Assaji.
And Kolita.
Same result. Hearing the verse, Kolita also attained Sotapadhi, stream entry. Their shared search led to this shared breakthrough. Amazing, really.
Just amazing. 2 best friends reaching this profound stage together from the same few lines. So naturally, their next thought is, let's tell our old teacher, Sanjaya.
Yes. It seems like a mix of excitement, maybe compassion, maybe a sense of duty. They went straight to Sanjaya.
Okay.
They told him all about the Buddha, his enlightenment, the Sangha, the community, and invited him, urged him, come with us, follow the Buddha.
And here we hit that puzzle again, because Sanjaya refused. Why? What reason did he give?
This is where the text gives us some insight into his thinking. His first reaction was about his status. He basically said, look, I'm the respected teacher here. I have this huge following. How can I become a student again? It'd be like turning a full water pot upside down.
Pride. Attachment to his position.
It certainly seems like it. Attachment to his role, his authority. And, you know, this isn't just some ancient story, is it? You see this today. People resist new information, new ways of thinking, if it challenges their established position or identity.
That's a great point. But Upatissa and Kolita, they didn't just give up, did they? They tried to persuade him.
Oh, yeah, they tried. They argued, you know, people are already starting to revere the Buddha. His teaching is powerful. They likely stressed that truth-seeking is more important than reputation or how many followers you have.
But Sanjaya just dug in his heels. He used some kind of philosophical argument to deflect, didn't he?
He did. It's quite interesting. When they kept pressing, he asked them this question. Tell me, friends, are there more fools in the world or more wise people?
Okay. Where is he going with this?
Well, Upatissa and Kolita answered, fools are definitely more numerous.
Right.
So Sanjaya then says, essentially, well then, the wise ones will go to the Buddha Gautama and the fools will stay here with me. I'll still have the bigger group.
Wow. That's quite a justification. Bit self-serving, maybe?
It certainly comes across that way. A convenient rationale to stick to his position and maintain his sense of importance.
So Upatissa and Kolita had to leave him then. But they had a feeling he might regret it.
The text says they left, predicting, or at least sensing strongly, that Sanjaya would soon realize he'd made a mistake.
And tragically, it seems they were right. What happened to Sanjaya after they left?
Well, the immediate result was that his community basically collapsed. Upatissa and Kolita left, and remember those 500 followers they brought with them?
Yeah.
They all left too, to follow the Buddha. So Sanjaya's monastery, his arama, was suddenly almost empty, deserted.
That's a huge blow. And the text describes a really intense physical reaction he had.
It does. It's a very vivid, dramatic detail. It says when Sanjaya saw his empty monastery grounds, he vomited hot blood.
Oof.
Yeah. It really conveys the depth of his distress, maybe the shock, the regret, the sheer magnitude of his loss hitting him physically.
A powerful, if grim, image of the consequences of clinging too tightly. Meanwhile, Upatissa and Kolita are heading towards the Buddha with their followers.
Yeah.
What was their reception like?
They arrived at the Vatthu monastery where the Buddha was staying, and the Buddha, seeing them approach in the distance, actually turned to the other monks.
Gets that.
He foretold their future. He said, "Monks, see those two friends coming, Kolita and Upatissa. They will become my chief disciples, the foremost pair."
What a welcome. Talk about rolling out the red carpet. And their ordination, becoming monks, that was special too.
Very special. They asked the Buddha for ordination, and he simply said, "Itha bhikkhavo," which means, "Come, monks." Instantly, they and all their 500 followers were transformed. Suddenly, they appeared as fully ordained monks, complete with robes and bowls, looking like they'd been monks for 100 years.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's described as a testament to their readiness, their spiritual maturity, and also the Buddha's own power.
So they go from being students who realized their teacher was limited to finding the ultimate teacher to instantly becoming senior monks and designated chief disciples. But their final enlightenment, arahantship, didn't happen quite as instantly as their followers, did it? Why the delay?
That's a really interesting point the text makes. While the 500 followers attained full enlightenment, arahantship, quite quickly,
Right.
the two chief disciples took a bit longer. The explanation given is because of the sheer scale of their aspiration. Their past vows and deep-seated wish over lifetimes wasn't just for their own enlightenment, but specifically to become the chief disciples of a Buddha.
Like a bodhisattva vow, but for disciplehood.
Sort of, yes. A bodhisattva-like aspiration for that specific role. It meant their path involved developing a vaster capacity, a greater accumulation of wisdom and merit suited for guiding so many others, so their development had a different rhythm, a different pace.
That makes sense. A bigger role requires more preparation, more depth. But they did get there eventually.
Oh, yes. Moggallana, Kolita, he attained arahantship swiftly on the 7th day after ordaining. He did it through intensive meditation practice with direct guidance from the Buddha.
7 days. Still pretty quick.
Absolutely. Sariputta, Upatissa, took a little longer, 15 days.
Okay.
He attained arahantship while listening to the Buddha teach a specific discourse, the Vedana Parigaha Sutta, to his own nephew, who was a wandering ascetic named Diganaka.
Listening to a teaching. That fits his reputation for wisdom, doesn't it?
Exactly. It highlights his profound intellectual capacity. The text suggests his particular path required that larger accumulation of merit we mentioned, fitting his role as the disciple foremost in wisdom. After they both attained arahantship, the Buddha formally declared them his chief disciples.
It's just a remarkable story arc. Seeking, finding, the contrast with Sanjaya's path. It covers so much.
It really does. And, it brings up concepts that probably pique your curiosity, this idea of stream entry, the different stages of enlightenment, different ways people reach it.
Definitely. Topics for future deep dives, perhaps.
For sure.
But wrapping up this particular story, what are the big takeaways for you? What really stands out from this account of Sanjaya and these early disciples?
Well, a few things really shine through for me. First, the sheer power of a single core teaching. That verse from Assaji.
Yeah.
It shows how essence can be more potent than endless explanation.
Good point.
Then there's the importance of active seeking, of keeping an open mind, being willing to learn, even if it means questioning what you thought you knew. And starkly, you see these opposite reactions to truth. The immediate, joyful acceptance by Upatissa and Kolita versus Sanjaya's clinging to status, to familiarity.
Which brings us right back to that initial puzzle. Why did Sanjaya refuse? Now, with all this context, it seems clear it wasn't just an intellectual disagreement.
No, it seems deeply tied to his ego, his attachment to being the teacher, the fear maybe of losing face, losing his followers, his whole identity. It's a powerful illustration of how internal stuffed pride, fear, attachment can block us from embracing something truly transformative, even when it's presented by people we respect.
So maybe something for you, the listener, to think about after this deep dive. Consider this. Are there beliefs, ideas, maybe even positions you hold on to quite tightly? How might you react if presented with compelling new insights that challenge them?
It's definitely a reminder to check our own attachments, isn't it? To stay open to the possibility of finding a deeper understanding, just like Upatissa and Kolita did.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into some fascinating ancient texts. We're looking at excerpts from Sanjaya the Second TXT.
That's right.
And our focus is trying to understand why the Buddha chose Sariputta and Moggallana as his top disciples.
It gets into some really core ideas about leadership, recognizing potential, and maybe most interestingly, the long reach of past intentions.
Yeah, that's the hook for you listening.
Yeah.
what can we learn about how potential is seen and how our own past hopes might shape things?
And it starts with a bit of a puzzle, actually, because you look at the early days, and some monks who seemed, well, really deserving weren't chosen for those top spots.
Exactly. Why not the first guys ordained? Why not the ones with huge followings?
Yeah.
That's where it gets really interesting.
It does. It challenges our usual assumptions.
Okay, let's unpack this. The text mentions some real discontent among the early monks back at Vinuvana. They had questions.
Strong opinions, even. They looked at who was there, who came first, who brought others in.
And they thought those should be the guys, right?
Pretty much. They pointed to the first 5 ascetics, the Buddha's very first followers after enlightenment.
Makes sense on the surface.
Or Yasa and his, 55 friends?
Yeah.
A huge group joining early on.
Yeah, or the Padavajja monks, another significant group.
And don't forget, the Kassapa brothers, Ruvala Kassapa and his brothers, were highly respected figures even before they followed the Buddha.
So the monks were basically saying, hey, what gives? These guys earned it.
Exactly. And their accusation was quite direct, according to the text. They felt the Buddha was choosing based on looking at faces.
Implying favoritism, basically. Not some deep spiritual insight, just liking someone's look.
It's a very human reaction, isn't it? Judging by outward signs, seniority, popularity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how did the Buddha respond to this? What was his reasoning?
Well, this is where it shifts completely. He directly refutes that idea of choosing based on appearance.
Okay.
He says it's not about the face, it's about their past aspirations, what they had wished for, what they had worked towards in previous lives.
Ah, so it goes much, much deeper than just this lifetime. That brings us to Anyakuchanya, right? He was one of the first 5.
Exactly. And he did get a high position, chief of the elders. So his seniority and early attainment were recognized.
But not chief disciple.
Right. Because, as the Buddha explained, his aspiration in a past life, under a previous Buddha named Vipassi, wasn't to be a chief disciple.
What was it then?
His specific wish, his driving goal back then, was to be the very first to realize the Dhamma, to attain arahantship in this life under Gautama Buddha.
So he achieved exactly what he had aimed for over lifetimes. First, to attain enlightenment among the Buddha's disciples.
Precisely. His long-held intention manifested. It wasn't that he was less worthy, just aimed differently.
Wow. That really reframes things. Our deepest intentions can really steer the ship, huh?
Absolutely. And to really drive this point home, the text tells this incredible story going back 91 eons.
91 eons. That's hard to even imagine.
It is. It's the time of Vipassi Buddha, and the story involves 2 brothers, Kulakala and Mahakala.
Okay, tell us about them. This sounds like a key illustration.
So Kulakala had this idea to offer the very first young rice stalks from the harvest to the Buddha and the Sangha.
The first fruits, essentially.
Yes. His brother Mahakal initially wasn't keen on the idea, thought it was maybe impractical.
But Kulakala persisted.
He did. He made the offering. And crucially, at the end of the meal that followed, he made a specific wish, an aspiration.
Not for wealth or anything worldly, I'm guessing.
No. He wished specifically that in a future life, he would be the first to realize the highest Dhamma under a future Buddha.
Just like Anyakutanya's aspiration.
Exactly the same core wish. And the immediate result in that lifetime. A miraculous harvest, far more abundant than expected.
Like the universe responding to his pure intention.
You could see it that way. And he didn't stop there.
Yeah.
9 times throughout that harvest season, he offered the first fruits.
Reinforcing that wish each time.
Constantly reinforcing it. It really shows the power of sustained, focused intention.
It reminds me of that principle. The Dhamma protects one who protects the Dhamma. His actions supported the Dhamma, and there was a positive result.
Precisely. And this wasn't a one-off wish. The text mentions he made a similar aspiration later under Padumuttara Buddha, offering a huge 7-day dana.
So a consistent pattern across vast stretches of time, that really builds the case for the Buddha's explanation.
It does. It shows these roles weren't assigned lightly, but were the fruition of incredibly long-term karmic trajectories shaped by aspiration.
Okay, so that covers Anyakuchanya and the principle of aspiration. But what about the others the monks mentioned? Yasa and his friends, the Bhattavajjas, the Kassapas, they seemed like prime candidates too.
The text touches on their pasts as well, showing they also had significant merit, but maybe different aspirations or circumstances.
Right, so Yasa and his 54 companions.
In a past life, during an era without a Buddha, they worked together doing good deeds, specifically caring for the poor and destitute.
So a strong foundation of group merit.
Yes. And they had a pivotal experience together involving contemplating the corpse of a pregnant woman.
Grim, but profound, I imagine.
Very. It led them to deeply understand impermanence. And importantly, they did hold an aspiration for arahantship under a previous Buddha.
So they were on the path, their past actions brought them close, but maybe not that specific chief disciple aspiration.
It seems that way. Their focus was on achieving liberation, arahantship.
Got it. What about the Vakyas, the 30 young men? Their story involves a wise pig.
Like chuckle. Yes, to about the pig. It's a memorable one. Again, in an era without a Buddha.
They found wisdom elsewhere.
They followed this pig's guidance and diligently kept the 5 precepts' basic ethical conduct for 60,000 years.
60,000 years. That's incredible dedication.
It really is. And like Yasa's group, they too had aspirations for arahantship under past Buddhas. Again, the goal was liberation.
Okay. And the Kassapa brothers.
Oh.
Big figures, lots of respect.
For them, the text is simpler. It just states their past aspiration was also for arahantship.
Yeah. Liberation. Not a specific role within the Sangha hierarchy.
Seems to be the implication. A powerful aspiration, absolutely, but focused purely on attaining the end of suffering.
This brings us to another story. King Mahinda and his sons under Phusa Buddha. This seems like a bit of a side story, but important.
Extremely important for understanding the intricate workings of karma and consequence over long periods. This goes back 92 eons.
Yeah.
Phusa Buddha had appointed King Mahinda's 2 younger sons as his chief disciples.
Ah, so the king saw this happen firsthand.
Yes, and he became incredibly devoted to the Buddha. Now, his 3 elder sons also wanted to make a grand offering, a meal for the Buddha and the entire Sangha.
But they needed the king's support.
They needed his permission and resources. They asked repeatedly, very persistently.
And eventually got it.
Yes, for a 3-month period. And during that time, these princes basically lived like monks. They took the 10 precepts, wore the kasaya robes, stayed at the monastery.
Full commitment.
Total immersion. And interestingly, the person managing their estates providing all the supplies for this huge undertaking.
Let me guess. Bimbisara in a future life.
Exactly. King Bimbisara, who becomes a great supporter of Gautama Buddha. The connections are amazing.
But there's a downside to this story too, isn't there? With the servants.
Yes, a really stark warning. Some of the servants responsible for preparing the foods secretly skimmed some off for themselves. Food intended for the Sangha.
Oh dear. What happened to them?
The karmic result was severe. They were reborn as Pretas, hungry ghosts, suffering intensely from hunger and thirst.
And the princes.
Because of their immense merit from the offering and their dedicated practice, they enjoyed rebirths in heavenly Deva realms for the entire 92 eons.
Wow, what a contrast. And the Predasaurus, did they just suffer forever?
This is the really striking part. They suffered through the times of 4 Buddhas, Katisanda, Konagamana, Kassapa, and finally, Gautama. They were waiting.
Waiting for what?
Waiting for their former manager, Bimbisara, to make an offering and specifically dedicate the merit to them.
Which he eventually did, in Gautama Buddha's time.
Yes. After making an offering to the Buddha and Sangha, he learned about the Pretas' plight. They actually appeared to him, and he formally transferred the merit. Only then were they released from their suffering.
Goodness. That shows the incredibly long-term consequences, positive and negative, how specific actions like transferring merit are needed.
Absolutely. No action is lost. And intention, even in seemingly small things like respecting offerings, matters immensely.
Okay, so after all these examples illustrating the power of past karma and aspiration, we finally come to the main event. The story of Sariputta and Moggallana themselves. Their connection goes way back too.
An incredibly long way back. The text identifies them in a past life as Sarada, an ascetic, and Srivata, a householder.
And they're friends.
Childhood friends, yes. A very deep bond. Sarada, after realizing the inescapable nature of death, decided to renounce the world.
Became an ascetic.
Yes, and a very successful one. He gathered 74,000 followers and developed incredible abilities, 5 supernormal powers, deep meditative states, clearly a highly advanced being.
So already very accomplished spiritually.
Very. Then, a Nomadasi Buddha appears in the world.
Another past Buddha.
Yes, in a city called Kendavati. And this Buddha, with his divine sight, saw Sarada and Srivata and knew their future potential and aspirations.
He knew they would become chief disciples eventually.
He foresaw their capacity and their forming aspirations. He then miraculously visited Sarada's hermitage.
Just appeared there.
Yes. Sarada immediately recognized him as a Buddha and made an offering of special fruits, which miraculously took on divine flavors in the Buddha's bowl.
A sign of Sarada's merit.
Indeed. Then Anomadasi Buddha taught the Dhamma to Sarada and his 74,000 disciples.
Yeah, the result.
All 74,000 disciples attained arahantship right then and there. Full liberation.
Amazing. But what about Sarada?
Here's the crucial twist. Sarada himself did not attain arahantship at that moment.
Why not? He was the leader, highly developed.
Because as he listened, he saw Anomadasi Buddha's chief disciple, a monk named Nisaba, standing beside the Buddha. And a powerful thought arose in Sarada. Wow, in the future, may I become the chief disciple of a Buddha just like him?
The aspiration formed right there.
Yeah.
His mind wasn't fully focused on his own liberation at that exact moment.
Exactly. His thoughts were scattered, focused on this future goal, this specific role. That aspiration prevented his immediate enlightenment, but set his course for the future.
And did Anomadasi Buddha know this?
He did. He looked into the future and prophesied. Countless eons from now, you will be born as Sariputta, and you will be the chief disciple, the Dhammasenapati, the general of the Dhamma for Gautama Buddha.
Incredible, the prophecy confirming his aspiration.
Yes. And what does Sarada do next? He immediately goes to his best friend, Sariputta,
The future Moggallana.
tells him about his own aspiration and says, you should aspire to be the second chief disciple.
Wow, encouraging his friend to aim for the other top spot alongside him. What a friendship.
It really is. And Sariputta takes this to heart. He then hosts Anomadasi Buddha and the entire Sangha, remember, 74,000 newly enlightened arahants plus others, for 7 full days.
A massive act of generosity.
Immense generosity, providing everything needed. This huge act of merit solidified his aspiration and karmic path towards becoming the second chief disciple, Moggallana, renowned for psychic powers.
So putting it all together, the Buddha's choice wasn't about looking at faces or current popularity at all.
Not in the slightest. It was the culmination of eons of specific, focused aspiration and the vast merit built up to support that goal.
It's a completely different way of looking at leadership and roles earned over lifetimes, not just appointed in the moment.
Precisely. And the key takeaway for you listening to this is really the profound power of your own intention, your own aspiration, and the importance of long-term sustained commitment.
Even things that seem small now, acts of generosity, moments of wishing well for the future.
They plant seeds. Coupled with clear, unwavering intention, they can have consequences far beyond what we might imagine, shaping futures across vast spans of time.
It really does make you stop and think, doesn't it? What intentions are you setting in motion right now? What future are you building with your thoughts, your actions, knowingly or not? This deep dive certainly shows that being well-informed isn't just about the here and now, but understanding these deeper currents of cause and effect. Thanks for exploring this with us today.